Hello everybody, it's Mr. Second Amendment, and again, this is another video that is long overdue. This is a video, I'm just trying to get this backlog of videos I need to put out there. But this is just, as the title basically talks about, these are the do's and don'ts of concealed carry. And again, I'm just going to throw my disclaimer out there. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a cop, I'm not a judge, I'm not a prosecutor or defense attorney, anything like that. This is just one guy's opinions about the whole concealed carry situation. If you want professional legal advice, that is sound advice that you can actually use in your everyday life or application, you definitely want to consult a lawyer or somebody who is well versed in the law, or a professional defense attorney or lawyer. Again, just take it for what it is. This is just simple advice. And now that the disclaimer's out of the way, I'm just going to go ahead with just some thoughts and personal opinions. This is basically the do's and don'ts of concealed carry, as like I said, as the title is going to show. And normally I would have you visually occupied, I'd be cleaning a gun or something, but because of the gravity and the seriousness of this video, I want to have my unoccupied, just undiverted attention, just to talk to you about these things that are actually very serious, that are life-changing. So first, we have our concealed carry gun on the table, and I'm going to make sure it's unloaded. And of course, we've seen this gun. There's no magazine, no source of feed, there's nothing in the chamber. With physical and visual inspection, this gun is completely unloaded. We've seen this gun in the custom mil-spec video, which I'll go ahead and link up. We've also seen this gun in the weekly 1911 training, and I'm probably missing some others. But basically, this is my concealed carry gun. Is a full-size 5-inch all-steel 1911, which is not, I know it's hypocritical, I do not recommend that for you. Or a gun that big or that heavy for concealed carry, and I talked about that in my EDC kit video, which I'm going to go ahead and flash up right now. But it works for me, and we're going to talk about some ramifications for this kind of gun later in this video. But basically, at a glance, I would not advise this type of gun for somebody to carry every day. And I talked about it in my EDC kit video. I'm not going to waste too much airtime on it. But basically, we're just going to move on. I'm going to go with the concealed carry do's and don'ts. Again, this is my personal advice, so let's get to it. Thanks for watching. All right, so the first thing is get a permit and get the training. Okay, now there are some states that come to mind are Alaska, Arizona, Vermont. Those states allow for concealed carry, and they do not require a concealed carry permit to legally carry a gun loaded concealed on your person in public. Okay, even with that situation, I would still, heavily advise that you get the permit. I would still advise that you get the training. I would still advise that, you basically go out there. You want to show, in case, God forbid this kind of thing ever happened where you have to use this to defend life. You're going to want to show and have that permit. You want to show that you've done the training, that you're not just even if you are a squared away individual, you want to show publicly, or at least in a court case or to law enforcement, that you are a squared away individual. You're just not some person carrying a gun because for whatever reason. So, attending the class, and I will tell you from a military background, from the training I have received, basically getting the 2 concealed carry permits, the Virginia one was eye-opening, the Utah one was especially as well. Just because both instructors were really excellent. Even from that military background, I've been shooting guns forever. We've been using guns for defense forever. It totally just changed my mind. It totally didn't change my mind, but what I want to say is it brought up a lot of things I did not even think about at all. Really just totally blew my mind and opened up a whole list of things that I all of a sudden start to think about, and really changed how I thought, and really opened my mind up to things that you should really look into. So if you have not already, and you are concealed carrying, or you want to conceal carry in public legally, then I would heavily advise to a training course, or advise you to attend a training course or some type of permit qualification or education. I know everyone's like, oh, I got my buddy, my uncle, whatever, and he's certified to teach it. He'll just get it done in an hour. He'll do the fingerprinting or whatever, and you're all set. I would advise against doing something like that, especially don't, have family members train you on how to do it. You want to go seek a neutral source, a qualified, professional, neutral source who's going to get you right. So, that's my biggest thing, is carry legally, get the training, get the permit wherever applicable. And so far, the only state in the union that does not allow concealed carry at all is the state of Illinois. The may issue states that don't allow it are Hawaii, New Jersey, New York, California, states like that. Hopefully we're going to have some legislation coming up. Hopefully that can change that. We'll see. Anyway, moving on. Another do of concealed carry is continue to train all the time. All right, this is not like riding a bicycle where once you solidify the training, you can do it for the rest of your life easily. All right, this is not the same situation. This is a perishable skill. All right, this is like, I compare it to a foreign language. Unless you're constantly speaking or talking the foreign language, you're constantly exposed to it, you're constantly doing it every now and then. All right, it's going to start to fade away, and you're going to have to get back to it, and it's going to be like starting over. So constantly keep your skills sharp. It's like a blade, it's like a knife that is constantly dulling down. Every now and then you want to get back out there and sharpen it up. My quota that I try to hold myself to is at least 50 rounds per week. Now, granted, at the time of the filming of this video, you know, the economy is not the best. I'm sure that's not going to change too much too soon, but the biggest problem is, you know, we're having what's called fire Armageddon, basically, where there's not a whole lot of ammo. The availability is bad. When you do find it, it's really expensive. So I will admit, and I will say that, you know, it's really hard right now to get out there and train often. Things that are going to help are dry fire practice at home. Things that are going to help are 22 conversion kits. I'm a huge fan of those, where the slide and the frame, or the slide and the barrel pop off, and then you put on a 22 conversion kit. Kimber makes an excellent one for 1911. Sig Sauer makes their own for their 22X series. So, you know, that's something you want to look into for sure, is 22s. That's going to be my next big purchase, and look forward to some videos for that. But anyway, train all the time. Do whatever you can. If you can't afford or find ammo, that's okay. Get some snap caps and start training at home. Do some dry fire practice. Do some holster draw drills at home. There's a lot of stuff that people don't realize that you can be doing at home that are very beneficial to your skills, and you don't even have to go to the gun range. You don't have to expend any ammo, and there's a lot of great stuff you can be doing at home. So, you know, that's something I want you to think about. Something that you should be doing all the time is training all the time. Because I'll tell you what, if, you know, do not be that guy. I've seen it in the gun shop, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves is someone buys a gun. Oh yeah, I'm going to carry this, or I have my concealed carry permit. They put 50 rounds through the gun, and then they buy hollow points that they've never shot through the gun, and then they carry it like that, and they just never shoot the gun. And they think everything's going to be fine in the event they actually need to use it. I would rather that person not carry that gun, because they're not, you know, again, we're gonna want to tip the balance. We want to, the whole reason why we're concealed carrying is we want to be an asset to public safety. We want to be a facilitator, an asset, a force multiplier, an advantage for law enforcement, for public safety, for our own safety. We don't want to be a hazard against all of those things. And I think shooting 50 rounds through it or less, and then just carrying gun ammo that you've never shot through it before, you know, you're just making yourself a huge hazard. So basically, you know, continue to train all the time. All right, next point is have the right attitude. Okay, this could be a whole separate video. I'm not going to waste airtime on it here, but you know, you want to have, we call it the sheepdog mindset, where, you know, you are not this Billy badass guy out there carrying a gun because you want to be macho, you know, which is unfortunately a huge public perception. We are out there carrying guns to save lives, our own life, the lives of others around us, our family, innocent life. We are there to save lives and prevent death. And you know, it's like a fire extinguisher in your house. You don't want to use the fire extinguisher. You hope you never have to use it, but you better believe there's one nearby and you know how to use it. All right, so instead of calling the fire department as your house is burning down, waiting for them to, and only them to respond, you're going to be that guy with the fire extinguisher putting out the fire before it grows into a huge house fire. Same concept applies. So, you know, basically we want to have the right attitude, and again, your concealed carry training course and your training courses, your professional courses and all that, they're going to train you basically for that situation. And kind of get you geared towards the right mindset. It's not just simple. It's not as simple as just owning guns. There's a whole lot else to it that, you know, I'm just not, that's a whole separate video. Look out for that soon. All right, so moving on, we do want to carry with a holster. Okay, now actually since the EDC kit video, there's been a couple of gear changes, and when there's enough changes, I'm going to do another EDC video. One of those huge changes is my holster. This is a temporary solution until I get my other one in. It's a leather holster, is the one I've ordered, but in the meantime, this is a Blackhawk, sturdy construction, and again, every time we pick up a gun, we make sure it's unloaded, visually and physically inspect it's unloaded. I'm going to go ahead and put the slide forward and put the weapon on safe, which is, by the way, how you should carry this gun. And I'll talk about that later. But going in the holster here, all right, it's going to have a tight fit right there. We have total trigger coverage. I will admit this fit could be a little better. All right, I'd like to see this go a little down more, but this is at least going to get me by until the other one comes in the mail pretty soon. I think a good leather holster you use every day is going to be the ideal long-term solution for concealed carry. But you can see that other pathetic Blackhawk holster that you saw in the EDC kit video, that has been since replaced. So that's the situation right there. But basically, the reason why I put it in there is you want to have proper trigger coverage. Okay, you want to make sure this trigger is covered, especially on a gun such as a Glock or something like that that does not have a manual safety. Where on a Glock with a round in the chamber, the gun is completely safe if and only if that trigger is covered. Okay, the second that on a Glock that's loaded, the second that you uncover that trigger, it is a possible hazard if you're not careful. So, and this is the biggest thing. The people who are most guilty of this are people who have like that Ruger LCP or that Taurus TCP or that Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380 or a little snubby 38. They simply load it and throw it in their pocket with all their keys and their spare change and all that stuff jumbling around in that pocket. All right, that goes in the bad idea category. No matter what size or type of gun it is, you're going to want to have a holster, people. All right, have that proper trigger coverage. Make sure the gun is protected. Make sure there's no loose change or anything that can get in there and possibly discharge a trigger. So especially on something like a car or a Glock where there is no manual safety, which are safe to carry so long as you have that trigger covered. So, we're going to get into round in the chamber later. All right, so we're going to carry with a holster. Retention is going to be something we need to look into. We're looking at a tight fit, a perfect fit, trigger protection. Even with the pocket guns, guys, make sure you have a holster. All right, protect that gun, keep it covered. All right, so the next thing is understand and know your gun. All right, and this kind of throws people back when I say this, but you should know this gun better than you know most people. Okay, you should know how to take it apart. You should know how to clean it. You should know how to care for it. You should know everything about this gun. You should know everything that is going to basically how this gun shoots in all kinds of lighting conditions, what ammo this gun likes, what ammo this gun does not cycle and does not like, how accurate you can be with certain types of ammo, what you can do or how you have to modify shooting for different stances or different positions or different lighting situations. You should know, and I tell people this, it throws them back, you should know this gun better than you know most people. You know this gun inside and out, you know everything about it, and you know it because you care for it and you clean it. And often, kind of a telltale sign that someone is properly using their concealed carry gun is it's usually dirty because they're out there training with it. And this happens to be clean, but I will admit sometimes this gun's a little bit dirty because I'm putting my 50 rounds a week through it and I just haven't got around to cleaning it yet. It's been a day or two and maybe then I'll get around to it. So basically, getting back to the original point, know this gun, know everything about it. Just know everything about it, get all the spare springs, recoil spring, all the spare parts, anything else that this gun needs, magazines, accessories, things like that, just get it. Okay, and know the gun. So this is going to be a huge do that I'm coming up on this point right here. And unfortunately, there's many veterans of concealed carry, many people who have been carrying for decades or years, or many people like that who have the permit, and they're very guilty of this, unfortunately. But this is a huge point, is do carry all the time, 24/7, wherever and whenever legal. Okay? You got to get yourself a gun, all right, that you're going to be comfortable with, that you're going to be carrying every day. And I tell people that the telltale sign that you have achieved this level of comfort where you should be at is when you go out and you perform your duties and you go about your day and you forget that you even have the gun on you. It's as natural as putting a wallet, a phone, some keys in your pocket, and also your gun. It becomes so natural and so common, and throughout the day it's not a hindrance, it's not bulging, it's not exposing itself, it's not this huge weight or size hazard. It basically just blends right into what you're carrying. That is when you properly know that everything has been done right, is you forget that you're even carrying it until you need it, and then of course it's there. And that's why, and we talked about this in EDC, but this is why I don't recommend something like this type of gun to carry all day, every day, is because it's big, it's clunky, it's heavy, it's huge, it's got a lot of weight. If you're not ready for that, you're going to end up leaving this gun at home. You're going to say, oh, you know what, I got to load it, it's huge, it's heavy, it's going to drag on my right side of my hip. I'm going to leave it at home today. Or I'm going to leave it in the truck when I go into the grocery store, or whatever the situation is. All right, that goes in the bad idea category. That's when we know we're doing it wrong, is when the gun is such a hazard, or we view it as such a hazard that we don't want to carry it. Then it's time to get a different gun that will accommodate your philosophy of use in your daily happenings. Okay, but we want to carry this gun 24/7 outside the home, whenever and wherever legal. Okay, of course, there's restrictions like a government building, such as a courthouse. In some states, there's restrictions you can't carry inside an alcohol-serving establishment. So again, that's leading me to my next point: is do know the law wherever you're at. Okay, I've done cross-country road trips. I've traveled. I've flown around. I've done training. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've traveled around, and every time I go through, I trace my path of travel down the highways and whatnot. I figure out which states I'm driving through or flying to, and I research the concealed carry laws to see if my Utah and Virginia permits are legal or valid in those states. Okay, and you know, basically the fact of the matter is you are responsible for knowing the law wherever you're at. So if you go into one state and the law is you can't do this or you can't do that, then you better be in compliance with the law, because if you get pulled over and you are not in compliance with the law, okay, ignorance of the law is no excuse to break the law, and they will hold you accountable and responsible for that, as they should. So you should always know the law wherever you're traveling. And wherever you're driving through, wherever you're traveling through, you should know the law, and you should know what is legal, what is not legal. You know, if you're going on a road trip, you're getting your tires checked, you're getting your tires rotated, oil changed on the car. Or maybe if you're flying, you're getting your itinerary printed, you're making your travel plans. Part of your travel plans should be researching the locality and the laws of your state and the states you're traveling through, to know if you're in compliance or what you're going to have to do at the border to properly store or transport the gun. Unfortunately, there is no national concealed carry, so you know, each state has its own things. In some states, each county has its own laws, so you have to be in direct compliance with the law. So I cannot stress that enough. It is your responsibility. Do know the law and know where you're carrying and what the local laws are. That is your responsibility. Okay, so now this next point that I'm talking about, moving on to another point here, another do, is this thing is going to be very controversial, and even the veterans of, I'm going to call you guys the veterans of concealed carry, my veteran sheepdogs watching right now, the guys who've been carrying, who've been in this to win it, they've been doing this forever, they've had permits forever, they've been carrying probably longer than I've been alive. All right, now there's going to be some veterans here that are not going to agree with this next controversial point, but you know, I've trained with law enforcement, I work with law enforcement, I work with guys who have served literally decades, LAPD, Las Vegas, SWAT team, SRT teams. I've talked to a lot of guys, street or beat cops. I've talked to a lot of guys. I work with these guys, train with these guys. Okay, and there's people I've been talking to and people I know personally and professionally, and I've basically picked their brains about it, and this is the general consensus I've come up with. Okay, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so if you want official legal advice, you should go seek it. But this is one guy's opinion based off of my experiences working with and training with law enforcement and having personal and professional relationships. So anyway, Mr. Second Amendment, what's the point? What's so controversial? Here it is. In the event that you have to actually use this gun to save your life or the lives of others, do say something to law enforcement, or at least describe the situation to law enforcement. And you're going to say, Mr. Second Amendment, what are you talking about? We've been told ever since we were kids, or ever since we first started concealed carrying, we've been told, it's been ingrained in our head from the get-go, don't talk to law enforcement, don't talk to anybody, ask for a lawyer, lawyer up, put up a stone wall, put up this brick wall, and don't say anything to anybody. You should always do that, and all of that. Okay, Mr. Second Amendment, it's been ingrained in our heads to do that, and you're saying you should actually talk to the police? And actually I'm saying yes, but to an extent. Okay? Now here's the situation. We have to keep this in context. All right, if you're still with me, bear with me. All right, for you, if you ever have to use that gun to save your life, okay, or the lives of others, it's a legitimate self-defense. It is that crazy adrenaline-packed, once-in-a-lifetime horrific event. Okay, that is a singular defining moment in your life. That is crazy. Life will never be the same afterwards. That is a very unique event for you. Okay, but we got to keep in mind who's responding to the scene. That's law enforcement. And for law enforcement, depending on if it's a city cop or not, for law enforcement, responding to someone being shot, that's a weekly, almost daily occurrence. Okay, so for you, this is a crazy, unique life-impacting event. But for that law enforcement officer or those officers who are responding on the scene, this is something they just do day in and day out. This is as simple as pouring a cup of coffee. Okay, now there is some concern because these law enforcement officers are only being told what the dispatcher has information and is telling them. They don't know who the good guy is. They don't know who the bad guy is. They don't know anything that transpired. And again, let's look at law enforcement. They're trying to protect their own safety. All they know is that someone got shot and someone's dead, and someone is not dead, and the person who is not dead, he has the gun and he killed the other guy. That's all they know. All right, and they're also looking out for their own safety. They don't want to get shot, just trying to understand what's going on and try to make an arrest. Okay, so they're trying to look out for their personal safety. They're also, all they know is there's a guy who's dead and there's a guy who's not dead, and the guy who's not dead has a gun and he's responsible for the other guy getting killed. That's all they know. Okay, so they're racing to the scene, and this is something they do all the time, but they are cautious because they got to worry about their personal protection and their personal safety. All right, they don't know what the hell's going on. All right, when they show up, let's keep in mind, what does law enforcement do? They collect information. They see who broke the law. They try to obtain as many witnesses or anybody in the scene. They try to figure out what was going on, write up a detailed report. They try to collect evidence or gather information just enough to where they can make arrests and send all of that stuff up to higher, which in this case is a judge or a court, and basically let the courts and the judge and the jury sort it out later. Okay, so the law enforcement officer, they are not the jury, they're not the judge, they're not the executioner, unless you make them the executioner, unless you have your gun still in your hand when they show up. But their job is just to collect information and make arrests if laws have been broken or possible laws have been broken, and basically pass it up to higher and let somebody else deal with it. Let somebody else sort it out because they have more stuff to move on to. Okay, so knowing what law enforcement is doing, knowing what situation we put ourselves, or what situation we've been placed in, I should more correctly say. All right, when law enforcement shows up, they don't know anything of the details yet. They don't know. And what I would do is definitely, before law enforcement shows up, I would put the gun away, probably just put it in your holster, openly exposed with your hands in the air so they can see it, and you can tell law enforcement, hey sir, just by the way, I do have a gun on my hip. I am a law-abiding citizen. I have a concealed carry permit. This was, and there's something I want you to remember right now. Write it down, ingrain it in your head. In defense of life. I had to act in defense of life. Okay, and you basically just want to set the mood. It's only 1 or 2 sentences. It's very quick, to an extent. You don't need to sit there for an hour blabbing everything, talking about this and talking about that. You don't need to do that. That's bad. All right, just a 1 or 2 sentence quick statement saying, I'm a concealed carry permit holder. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was in defense of life. I had no other option. There was no escape. There was no way for me to get out of this, and I had to save my life. And then I was left with no other choice. And I do have a gun. It's on my hip. It's right here. My hands are in the air. I am fully willing and able and ready to comply with any orders. Just tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it. Basically, that's all you need to say. All right. You don't need to blab about this. You don't need to talk about that. You don't need to go into details. You don't need to be going into this or that. Basically, you just state the situation and let the officers roll with that information. Okay, so, and also very quickly you want to point out witnesses. Say, hey, that lady over there in the pink shirt, she saw the whole thing happen. This guy that was sitting at the door in the blue shirt, he saw everything too. You want to point out these witnesses so they don't walk away. Okay, these are people who saw you defend your life with legal self-defense. All right, don't let them just walk off the scene. If you point them out to law enforcement officers, law enforcement, believe me, they are going to make sure these people don't leave the scene. They are going to find those people, go talk to them, and get their story so they can send it up to higher. Okay, so, point out some witnesses so the cops can go talk to them and make sure they don't leave the scene so that valuable information is lost forever. Okay, and basically describe, I'm a law-abiding citizen. It was in defense of life. I had no other option. I was in fear for my life, and I was left with nothing else. I just had to do it to save lives, in defense of life. If that guy saw me, that lady over there saw me, and they can tell you everything, but that's the situation. I'm willing and ready to comply with any orders you have. Okay, and that's all you need to say. Okay, leave it at that. And, I have a buddy of mine, 25 years LAPD, and, he told me, for better or worse, unfortunately or for the better, the first story is always the most correct story. And that's unfortunate sometimes, it's really good sometimes, but basically what he was saying when he told me that is, the person who calls 911 or the person who first gives their story or sets the mood or sets the ball rolling when the cops show up, that is the most correct story. That's what everything else is based off of. So if the police roll in and you set the ball rolling in your favor saying, yes, it was self-defense, I'm a law-abiding citizen, those people saw me, it was self-defense, it was in defense of life, I had no other choice. Okay, that's going to set the ball rolling in your favor because the cops are not going to view you as the bad guy anymore. they're going to view you as this unfortunate law-abiding citizen that was just in this horrible situation. They're still probably going to put cuffs on you or take your gun. Definitely going to take a gun, but they're probably going to put you to the side, detain you until they get some more information and figure it out. But your treatment is going to be a lot different than if you just sit there and say, nope, want a lawyer, I want a lawyer. Nope, forget you, F you, I want a lawyer, I want a lawyer. I'm not going to talk to you, I want a lawyer. Okay, it's not helping out, because this cop, he's trying to get information. He doesn't want to get shot. Okay, he doesn't understand what's going on. There's a guy dead, and there's a guy not dead, and there's a guy with a gun who's not dead, who killed the guy who's dead. All right, this cop is trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and he's trying to make it home that night. He doesn't want to get shot either. So this cop is trying to get some information to figure out what the hell is going on, so that safety can prevail and the law can be restored. Okay, so and that's the thing. Here's another thing: if you cannot trust yourself to effectively and very shortly, very quickly communicate yourself to law enforcement, then maybe the best answer for you is to remain quiet and not say a word and just wait till a lawyer comes. Okay, maybe if you can't trust yourself to effectively communicate, maybe when you're nervous, you start to jitter or stumble. Maybe that you're just not really good under stress trying to talk to people. Maybe you already know that from the onset. You already know yourself. Okay, maybe the best solution for you is to just wait for a lawyer and let the witnesses speak for themselves. And unfortunately, the ball may not be rolling in your favor from the start, but hopefully, if you did the right thing, it was legitimate self-defense, and there was enough witnesses or cameras or whatnot, then hopefully there's people who can speak for you, or there's evidence that can speak for you undeniably. But I would, and I'm going against the thought of conventional wisdom here. And of course, there may be some of you watching right now, like, Mr. Second Amendment, I can't agree with that. I'm just not going to say anything until a lawyer shows up. And you know what? If that's you, then that's you. That's fine. This is just one guy's opinion. This is why we're here. We're sharing opinion, and we're transferring ideas. So my advice, based off all the law enforcement officers I've talked to and trained with and work with, that I know professionally and personally, everything I've come to with a consensus with everybody I know and talk to legitimate professionals in this field, the number one thing you want to do is, at least with a 1 or 2 quick sentence explanation, fully comply with law enforcement and just very quickly tell them what happened, get the ball rolling towards your favor, and just shut the hell up and don't say anything else. And like I said, if you can't trust yourself to do that effectively, then maybe your policy, the best policy for you, is just to keep quiet. That could be it. So again, that's a personal opinion. That one is going against conventional wisdom, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. That's what I think, based off of all the law enforcement officers I've talked to and I know. So I'm going to leave that point to rest. That could be a whole separate video. I think I pretty much covered that. I'm not going to waste more airtime on it. Do with that with what you will. Okay, so the next point here is, do carry extra ammo. Okay, as you can see, and as we talked about in EDC, we do have an upgrade here. And the EDC video had my standard 7-round mags. Now I'm equipped with Wilson Combat 8-rounders. Very, very good magazines. Wilson Combat, if you're watching, hell of an excellent product. Huge fan. I've seen some of your Wilsons come through on FFL transfers, and excellent 1911s. Huge fan of everything you make. So, and again, like I said in EDC, no one pays me. There's nobody who pays me or mails me stuff or tells me to talk highly of a certain brand. I'll call it out when I see it. And right now I'm calling this out as a good, positive product. Hugely recommended. And I have of course, my Hornady Tap FPD ammunition. 230 grain seems to work the best out of this gun, with the best accuracy, the best point of impact, and the hydraulic shock that it's going to create. It's my personal load. And but basically, going back to the original point, we want to carry enough ammunition. And I really like, my favorite is Springfield Armory's motto, or their slogan is "Bring Enough Gun." Okay, I'm a huge fan of that. It's kind of a cool saying, because if you are in a battle or a contest for your life, and it's a 50-50 chance this guy wants to take your life and you want to save your life, okay, and it's beyond trying to talk it out. It's beyond trying to come with a peaceful resolution. There's no time to sit down and talk about it or hug it out. You are just in the situation. You got to deal with it to save your life. You got to be as aggressive as possible. Bring on whatever kind of violence they're bringing on. Okay, and you are in that primal battle for your own safety, your own welfare, your own life. Okay, we're going to want to bring as many advantages as we can. There's no such thing as cheating on the battlefield. You are going to utilize every single advantage that you can. Of course, that's your primary objective. You want to utilize your strengths and your advantages, and you want to exploit or take advantage of his weaknesses or his drawbacks. And one of your advantages that you can walk into that situation with is having enough ammo. And I have a good friend who, 30 years, Las Vegas SWAT team, Las Vegas police, and I used to work with him back at Cabela's. And he basically talked about one of his many shootouts, and he had many, by the way. Pretty much any law enforcement officer from a city that you talk to, they're going to have many shootout stories. Some they'll share, some they won't. One of the ones that he was willing to share was the fact that, there was a shootout, and they asked him afterwards, like, well, how many shots do you think you fired, sir? Or how many shots do you think you fired in that? And he said, oh, it must have been like 10 to 15. I must have fired, it was probably about 10 to 15 shots. Okay, now they actually went on the scene. They looked at they picked up every single piece of brass that came from his weapon. Guess how many pieces of brass they found? It was about 70. Okay. In the flash of a crate, and he wasn't trying to lie to them. He honestly, because it was a flash in the moment, he just could not honestly recall a realistic idea of how many rounds he fired. So, in that situation, unfortunately, you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're going to sink to the lowest level of your training. And a lot of people, rounds, from a military standpoint, rounds get you places. If you got to go from point A to point B, you're going to throw some rounds on target to cover your approach or to cover your movement. And, very quickly, especially with a gun like this, where I only have, 7 or 8 plus 1, right, rounds are going to start to go very quick. And this slide is going to lock to the rear very quickly. It's going to start to run out very quickly. And before I know it, I'm going to run out. I'm going to need to reload. So don't be that guy that has, especially with a revolver, that has just one loaded cylinder, that's it, or has a little pocket pistol with no spare ammo. When you're carrying a gun, you're going to carry spare ammo, okay? Because, again, that's the whole reason for concealed carry. We don't know if or when anything's going to happen. We do our best to avoid these kind of situations, but sometimes it just happens, no matter how good we are trying to avoid it. And in that event, we're going to make sure we bring enough gun. And we're going to bring enough advantages in our corner so that we can survive and go home, and they don't, all right, if they're trying to take our lives. So I'm carrying enough ammo, and again, this puts me at a disadvantage. I talked about this in EDC. I'm carrying a 1911, which is 8 plus 1 in this configuration. All right, let's say my attacker has an XDM 9mm, that's 19 plus 1. Okay, so he's got, with the 3 mags like I have, he would have more than double the capacity that I have in terms of firepower. So at that point, it's not even about, you can't even bring out the argument, 45 is more powerful than 9 or this and that. Who cares about that when the fact that he's got more rounds he can put on me than I do on him? So these are all things you got to think about. Something else you might want to think about is in the vehicle, in the truck or the car, you might want to have extra magazines or extra ammo. Okay, and there's been situations where law enforcement, I'm thinking right now of the North Hollywood shootout or the Charlie Square shooting in Salt Lake a couple years back. I'm thinking about these kinds of things, and law enforcement had to go back to their vehicles, and luckily they had spare mags and spare ammo in there, because the standard loadout of 1 plus 2 mags is not going to cut it for an extended shootout or kind of a situation like that. So it may not be a bad idea to run, use the vehicle as a resupply point and have more ammunition in the vehicle, or even possibly a different weapon in there. You might even have an AR-15 in the toolbox of the truck or in the trunk. You can pop that out. All right, and the kind of mindset I'm thinking about is a crazy North Hollywood shootout situation. This is a very crazy, rare situation. Utilize it for what you will. This is just one guy's opinion, some thoughts coming out right now. All right, and the last point I'm going to do in the do category, at least officially, is going to be carry defensive ammo. Okay, is not uncommon, unfortunately, to run into people who basically say, oh, well, I'm carrying full metal jacket. And I say, are you serious? I mean, there's been times where hollow points, because of the hit or the clothing blocking up the hollow point or whatnot, where hollow points have basically acted like full metal jacket slugs, just going in and out, no expansion, no damage. All right, so there's kind of a lot of voodoo in the moment of depending on what kind of hits you score, and there's a lot of X factors, a lot of variables here. You want to bring, again, that's the whole theme here, is bring enough gun to the fight. I'm not going to be slinging 45 FMJ down the range, because if that goes through my attacker, it's still pretty good velocity coming out the other end. I'm going to want to get something that is, going to give me a better advantage. And, for that, my official answer is look towards law enforcement. What does law enforcement use? Look at that brand and type of ammo, try it through your gun, try some similar ones, and come up with a solution. But carry defensive ammo in your guns, and make sure that you've shot that ammo through your gun. Some defensive ammo is honestly better than others. Some guns will shoot some types of ammo, and others will not shoot other types. So, you got to know your gun, and you got to know the situation. You got to know what your gun is going to shoot and what it's not going to shoot, what the point of impact and the accuracy looks like. Maybe do your own ballistic testing or water jugs or whatever. And I'm going to throw up a link to my Hornady Critical Defense ZMAX test. I'll throw that up right now. But just kind of an example, doing your own testing, shooting through cover, concealment, shooting through things, shooting at things, and just kind of figure out what it's going to do. So carry defensive ammo. That should be a, that should be a, just taken for granted, but unfortunately it's not. There's a lot of people who carry full metal jacket. I don't even understand that. All right, so now we're going to look at the don'ts. Okay, now maybe I'll have some do's come in here, and I've already covered some of this, but we're just going to get right into it. The don'ts. Do not carry without a holster. Okay, always use that holster, even if it's a little pocket gun, a little LCP, little Bodyguard 380, little snubby 38, 5-shot, Smith & Wesson Airweight, something like that. Always have a holster, especially if you're going to have a fully loaded gun with all the chambers in the cylinder loaded, or you're going to have a round in the chamber, which we're going to talk about towards the end of the don't list. But especially if you're going to have a round in the chamber, which you should, by the way, and we're going to talk about that. Carry with the thing in the holster. You got spare change, you got stuff rattling around in the pocket. Never just take a loaded gun and put it in your waistband using the tension of just the belt line to try to keep it up. Okay, that's ridiculous. Always have a holster, have that proper trigger coverage, protect the gun from scratches and wear and possibly getting something jarred in the trigger guard. Okay, it's just, it should be taken for granted, but just like I talked about with the ammo situation, it's not, and there's a lot of veteran sheepdogs, a lot of veteran concealed carry guys who don't carry with a holster. It's ridiculous. They make inside the pocket holsters for virtually every type of gun you're going to buy. So, just carry with a holster. All right, number 2, and this is kind of a big one that I think a lot of people don't think about, is don't tell people around you that you're carrying. Okay, I remember one time when I first started concealed carrying, I was, proper concealed carry garment, everything was covered, wasn't saying anything, and my buddy John knew that I was carrying, and at one point it was a social gathering and at a friend's house, and all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, and he's got a gun, and everything, like, it was just a pin drop. Everything changed. It was weird, it was awkward, it was random, it was just everything you didn't want all wrapped into one. So when you're hanging out with friends or hanging out with family or hanging out with people in public, don't tell anybody that you're carrying. It's concealed for a reason. And if there are going to be family members or close friends who are inevitably going to know that you're going to carry, make sure that you tell them you're going to be quiet. Okay, you're not going to sit there and talk to people about how I'm carrying a gun. You're going to keep that under wraps. That's something we never talk about in public. You just make that as your standard rule in the household or with your friends. We don't talk about the fact that I got a gun. It's there for a reason, but it's concealed for a reason. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And that's kind of a side note with open carry. I have open carried out of necessity. I have open carried at luncheons and whatnot, or open carry events. I've done that over in Virginia, whatnot. Open carry barbecues and stuff like that. I've done those. It's kind of a catch-22. Although I don't personally advocate for the everyday carry openly. The everyday carriage of guns openly. I think concealed is a much better option. I still support the right to do it. I think you should totally always be able to do it whenever you feel like it, wherever legal, as long as it's, of course, not in a government building or anything. But, and it's kind of a catch-22 because to uphold and continue that right, we got to practice it. We got to make a statement with it. But then again, it's the thing I don't think you should be doing every day, because you're going to get all kinds of 911 calls. It's going to be tying up dispatchers. It's going to send law enforcement out. You're going to be put on the side of the curb with handcuffs. And it's going to take about half hour, 45 minutes for the cops to finally realize that you're not actually doing anything wrong. And then they're just going to follow you home. It's going to be really strange and weird. Believe me, it's happened. So, you got to, open carry. I prefer out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to tell the bad guy, let him know which guy he has to kill first. So, I just don't want to put myself in that situation. So, along the same line, don't tell people you're carrying. Also, don't allow, your gun to show. Make sure you have proper concealed carry garments, a long sleeve button down or a button down shirt that covers over. It's not tucked in, or they even have like professional business wear inside the pant, tuck in holsters where you can actually tuck in a business shirt, and still carry inside the pant. It's kind of a cool situation. Anyway, find the right holster, and that's another thing. You're going to have to experiment. Find the right holster, find the right gun, find the right clothing, find the right system or way of carrying that works best for you, and just go with it. So don't tell people that you're carrying. Don't carry openly. Make sure it's concealed. Unless you're making a statement or doing an open carry rally, go for it. Or you're out of necessity, go for it. It's your right. Do it. I support it. Okay, this also is a point I already talked about, but do not stop training. Do not stop seeking opportunities or training events or situations that you can possibly be out there training with. The training never stops, the learning never stops. Do not stop seeking those opportunities. Always train, always keep an open mind, always look and see what other people are doing and see what their feedback is. Go attend training courses. Keep your concealed carry permit up by attending more classes. Some people say you should attend a concealed carry course once a year. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Okay, and if you want, just the training never stops. So keep an open mind about that. Okay, let's see. Another point here is do not think of the gun as anything other than the last resort. Okay, we don't want to treat the gun as like if we're possible danger is brewing or something's happening or we're kind of scared, we're going to go ahead and flash the gun to intimidate people or pull it out and brandish it but not shoot it just to freak people out or scare off a possible attacker. We're not doing that, all right? We're not in the business to scare people. We're not in the business to be written up on brandishing charges or a misdemeanor or something like that, or we're not going to do that. And in my personal philosophy, there's many different mindsets out there. Seems to be kind of 50-50, but my personal philosophy is this gun does not come out. It does not get pointed at anybody. The safety never comes off. The gun never leaves the holster until it's being used. Okay, we're pulling that gun to save our lives. And we're only doing that as a last resort. We've tried to avoid dangerous situations, but we found ourselves in a dangerous situation. We tried to escape that situation, but we couldn't because of either it was blocked or there's no way out. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to pull it out and save our lives. Okay, so we're not pulling that gun unless we're about to use it. All right, don't be that guy who's gonna, walking down an alley, you see somebody and you think he's shifty, so you just like flash the gun to show the guy, and then all of a sudden that guy calls the cops saying there's some freak in the alley that has a gun, and then the whole thing turns into a disaster, right? We're not pulling the gun, we're not showing the gun. The gun is never leaving the holster until we're using it to save our lives. Okay, and again, that's going with my second don't tell people you're carrying. That's not something we need to broadcast to the world on an everyday basis. Okay, so that's my personal opinion. Again, consult a lawyer and whatnot about that. But that's generally, they're all pretty much going to tell you, don't brandish the gun unless you're taking it out to save your life. Okay, so we're going to move on here. Let's see, don't carry inconsistently. I already talked about that. And before I get back to that, just real quick on the other point I was talking about, I just thought of this. Okay, we never want to be in a situation, and this is another don't I'm just going to make separate. Don't piss somebody off or elevate the situation or pour gas on the fire and make it a situation where you need to pull this gun. Okay, don't do that. The last thing you want to be doing is taking an upset person or someone who's already pissed off and then adding fuel in the fire or trying to egg them on or piss them off to the point where then they start to attack you, and there really is, then there's no other option but to pull this to legitimately save your life. Okay, because they're going to look at that, and morally, legally speaking, you had a hand in trying to kill that guy because you pissed him off, you egged him on, you stayed when he should have left, you started calling him names or doing this or that or adding fuel to the fire. Maybe you were following this person, so you were freaking that person out. Maybe, the situation, you were making it worse, and then all of a sudden, when you legitimately had no other option left, and you were being faced with a life-threatening situation, all of a sudden you pulled the gun and had to use it. Okay, you're going to be held legally and morally liable for that. All right, now that brings me to the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman situation. Okay, that could be a whole separate video. No one's really going to know for sure until all the evidence comes out, and even then, a year after it happened, we're still, waiting for the court case. It's coming. We're waiting for all the evidence, and it's just a really horrible situation on all accounts. But the one thing I'm going to tell you is, don't be a cop. Okay, I'm not trying to critique George Zimmerman or try to make preliminary judgments about that individual court case. But what I will say, from what I understand about that case, all right, is you do not want to follow somebody and freak them out. Okay, I'm not trying to defend Trayvon Martin because, as I understand it, he did attack George Zimmerman, and George Zimmerman was then in a position where he had to do something. Okay, but don't be an active member in creating that situation for you. Try under all circumstances to avoid the situation. If there is something that you feel is dangerous, call it into law enforcement and then let them do their job. Don't egg on the situation. Don't add fuel on the fire. Don't make it worse. Okay, you're not a cop. It's not your job to follow people and question them and ask them questions. And, it's your job to be a sheepdog, a defensive element to society, a proactive force multiplier for law enforcement, and a positive asset, basically a positive person towards public safety. You don't want to be in a situation where you're adding fuel to the fire. So that's all I got to say about that. All right, so moving on to the other point is don't carry inconsistently. Okay, and I already talked about this, where do carry 24/7 where it's legal. Don't carry inconsistently. If that means you need a new gun because maybe you bought a 1911 as your first handgun, which is a bad idea to begin with, okay, and then you think you're going to carry it with your new concealed carry permit, you're going to carry it every day, and then all of a sudden you realize it's big and heavy, and then you start to leave it at home more and more. You leave it in the car when you go into the, Home Depot or wherever you go in to go shop somewhere, and you leave it in the truck or something, or you leave it at home because it's too big. All right, that means we need a new gun, okay? Or we need to shift our training, our holster. We need to shift our clothing. Elements need to change to where we can start to carry a gun 24/7, because then what's the whole point of even having a concealed carry permit if you're not going to carry 24/7? That's my biggest problem with concealed carry permit holders. There's a lot of veteran sheepdog out there who don't carry 24/7. So, and then if you're ever in that situation, you're going to be thinking to yourself, man, I really wish I had my gun right now, because I'm trying to avoid and things are not going too well, and it would have a peace of mind about me. I'd know, so don't ever put yourself in that situation. So always carry consistently, do not carry inconsistently. Carry all the time wherever legal. That's my opinion. Outside the house, carry all the time. Okay. Here's a huge don't, and unfortunately this is something that veteran sheepdogs, veteran concealed carry permit holders are extremely guilty of. Okay, do not carry without a round in the chamber. Always do carry with a round in the chamber. Here's my biggest test, right? I've been all over this country. I've been traveling. I've been stationed or lived in different areas, okay? And I'll go to the gun shops. I'll just go to a random gun shop and my biggest test for the validity of a gun shop, or at least the personnel running it, is I talk to guys, I come off as a guy just asking some questions, trying to get some information. The person asking the questions is controlling the conversation. So I'm asking the questions. I'm like, all right, with a concealed carry gun, what do you think? Do you think I should carry with a round in the chamber or not? And if that gun shop salesman tells me I should not carry with a round in the chamber, it is going to take me it's going to take a lot for me not to walk out of that gun shop. All right, they better have some way of coming up from that, because if you're going to employ somebody behind your counter and he's going to be telling you life-ending advice like that, it's time to get a new gun shop employee, or it's time to train that employee to, use their brain. All right, I'm calling you out. All right, if you're working at a gun shop, or you're a concealed carry permit holder, you're a veteran sheepdog, you're a gun owner, you've had a concealed carry permit forever, and you think it's actually a good idea to carry without a round in the chamber, are you outside your mind? All right, and this is the biggest thing I get. People, and you might even be thinking this right now, well, Mr. Second Amendment, I have a Glock. I have a Glock 19, or I have a Glock 26, or I have I have an XD, or I have an M&P 9, or a 9C, or an M&P Shield, or something like that. And I just, it's weird not having a manual safety. I can't trust it. Well, then get a new gun. Get a gun that you can trust, because all I got to tell you is you are not going to want to be in a situation where you don't have a round in the chamber. Okay, because we're taking for granted the possibility that you even have time to chamber around. And I've seen, it is pretty cool to watch. It's a cool magic show. I call it a magic show. It's a cool magic show when a gun shop salesman is like, and I call him out, like, why would you recommend not having a round in the chamber? And he starts to discuss, well, I can just pull out my Glock, and all I have to do is, again, it's unloaded, but all I have to do is pull out my Glock, and I do that, and I'm ready to go. Or I do that on the edge of the belt line, and I'm ready to go. And I tell people, are you outside your mind? All right, if you seriously think you're going to have the time, I don't care how much muscle memory training you've put in. I don't care how much training or familiarization you have with that weapon system. I don't care. Do you think you're actually going to have enough time to pull out that gun? Oh, hold on, bad guy. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me chamber around. Hold on. Let me make sure I don't miss my belt line. Click. Okay, now I'm ready to take down. Now I'm ready to save my life. Okay, are you outside your flipping mind? Are you kidding right now? I really hope, okay, now this is, usually I'm very respectful, usually I'm very kind of touchy-feely, I walk right through it, I make everything nice, but right now I'm being very blunt, okay? If you're watching this and you think it's a good idea to carry without a round in the chamber, I hope this is a wake-up call to you, okay? I really hope so. Because you should be carrying with a round in the chamber. You may have to, you're using this hand, all right, to deal with a problem. Maybe this hand is getting shredded because he's got a knife and you're trying to protect your vitals, all right? So this hand's getting cut up, all right? There's blood and there's all kinds of pain. Everything's going on, all right? You may have to take this hand and pull out the gun from your other side and start to use it, just like that. Okay, like I said, there's so many variables, there's so many different training situations, there's no way to cover everything, but again, it's going back to my theme. Bring enough gun to the fight, put as many advantages in your corner as possible, because this is a primal situation. You are defending your life. Someone wants to take it and you want to preserve it. Are you going to put up more barriers to save between you and saving your life? No, you're going to take down as many of those barriers as possible. You're going to carry more ammo. You're going to carry a gun that you know how to use. You're going to carry a gun that's simple, that you're effective with. You're going to carry with a round in the chamber. That is absolutely absurd. I cannot, if I go to a gun shop and a gun shop salesman or a guy behind the counter, he's telling me not to carry with a round in the chamber, right? I can't take that person seriously, and I don't even know what they're doing selling guns, telling people life-ending advice. I call that life-ending advice. I cannot reiterate that point enough. You are going to carry with a round in the chamber, which brings me to the 1911. Okay, if you're going to be one of those carries, you got a Kimber, a conceal or a custom carry, you got a 1911, or maybe you're a crazy person like me, you've got a full-size, full-steel 1911 that you're carrying. With a gun with this battery of arms and this nomenclature, this cycle of operations, all right, I'm not going to do it obviously, but we're going to insert a loaded magazine. We're going to chamber that round, and we're going to put the weapon on manual safe. This is how the gun is carried all day. Okay. In that scenario, we would have a fully loaded magazine. We would have a round in the chamber. The hammer is back, and the weapon is on manual safe. Okay, this is how you properly carry a 1911 pistol. Okay, or any other pistol that utilizes this system. If you're going to do something like a Beretta M9 or PX4, all right, you're going to chamber the round, decock it, and put it back on fire. Okay, so that first trigger pull is double action. Everything else after that is single action. You are going to do what you need to do to where you want to eliminate as many barriers as possible. And for me, you know, the 1911, if I were to pull this out, and again, it's unloaded, can never be too safe. If I were to pull this gun out of my holster just like such and start pulling the trigger, obviously nothing's going to happen, okay, because it's unsafe. So to try to eliminate as many barriers as possible, whenever I shoot this gun, target practice, training, anything, I always shoot this gun with my thumb on top of the safety. Okay, so I'm never in a situation, so I'm pulling this out of the holster, and immediately, right when it gets into the, right forward downrange, when my feet and my leg is cleared, I've put in the muscle memory to flip it off safe as it's coming up. And if I have to, you know, I'm blocking with this hand, I'm tilting my body that way, so I'm keeping the gun side further away from the guy, all right, and I'm basically pulling the trigger and discharging very controlled pairs, or just dumping the mag, depending on the situation. And yes, I trained for that. I got some more videos coming up on that. All right, so if I'm doing this, all right, and I have a Glock, and again, it's unloaded, I have a Glock, okay, and I did not load around in the chamber, I have to somehow bring this gun up here, somehow try the chamber around, okay, and again, going back to the magic show, I've seen some really nice magic shows. I've seen some people where, you know, they got their holster belt line and they take the rear sight, and then they just against their belt with one hand. Okay, you can't always count on that you're going to be able to do that. Again, like I said before, you are not going to rise to the occasion. You are going to sink to the lowest level of your training, and if you're relying on your belt buckle or your belt just happening to be there just at the right angle in the right place, or there's no clothing covering it, I don't even understand. People, I really don't understand how you carry without a round in the chamber. Because they're going to die next to a loaded gun, or you're just going to give the bad guy something to kill you with. I don't even understand that. I have no. If you're going to carry without a round in the chamber, don't even carry the gun. Okay, just turn in your concealed carry permit. Don't even carry the gun. You are no longer an asset to public safety. That is my personal opinion. Take it or leave it. If you're offended because you are used to carrying around not in the chamber, all right, I hope you're offended. I hope this changes your mind, and I hope it leads you to think about it more. Okay, so. Again, I can't take any gun shop employee seriously if you're not going to carry around in the chamber. That's absolutely absurd. Okay, so let's see. Going back down to the list here, I'm going to try to wrap this up. I know it's been a long video. I really appreciate you guys sticking in there. if you've made it this far. One of the last don'ts here is do not make your own ammo. Okay, just buy factory-made defensive ammo. It's been specifically loaded very carefully at the factory. There's been a lot of testing that they've done. A lot of times that ammunition is probably actually used. We got a lot of Corbon or Spear Gold Dot or Hornady Tap FPD. There's a lot of this ammo that is actually used on the streets every day by law enforcement and other government agencies, and it's proven. It's been FBI tested. It's been hand controlled in a factory process that is definitely unlike anything else. I would advise you not to make your own ammo, even though it reloads. I mean, I know a very good reloader. He's been doing it for decades. He can make excellent ammo, very reliable, clean burning, accurate ammo. I would still advise not, and he doesn't even carry with his reloads. He just carries with factory defensive ammo. And the reason for that is, you see all these myths out there, or these legends, or these horror stories of people in court saying, oh, well, you made your own ammo and you hand loaded these hard cast lead bullets to cause more damage. You were out there to hurt people. Okay, and that's definitely something you don't want to open yourself up to. Not to mention, if you are not an experienced, seasoned reloader, and there is a problem with maybe one of your components not going off, or maybe the primer was not seated right, or maybe the primer pocket was dirty before you clean. There's a whole list of hundreds of things that could go wrong. And even if you're a competent reloader, most of them, pretty much every competent reloader I've ever met, they still carry factory ammo. They want to, and if they ask afterwards if you have to use this gun to save your life, and they say, well, why did you choose that ammo? You just tell them the truth. Like, I researched what the law enforcement around me were using, and I just figured if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And you just leave it at that. You just want to eliminate as many possible hang-ups or loose ties as possible. So that's why I advise factory ammo. Let's see, and do not over-elaborate with law enforcement. This kind of goes back to that controversial point that I made originally in the video. And that point is, I would send, a couple sentences out. I would just basically describe the situation. And, just leave it at that. I would not over elaborate. And again, like I said, if you can't trust yourself to effectively communicate yourself to law enforcement in that kind of situation, then you know what? Then don't do it. If you can't trust that you're, not going to have any problems or any issues, then you know what? Maybe the best solution for you is definitely to, just go ahead and lawyer up and refuse to answer anything. So let's see. Moving on to my next point. Okay, now this is going to be kind of a double-ended statement here, kind of a double-edged sword, but do not carry a caliber that will not save your life. Okay, now that's a very open-ended statement. All right, in an ideal world where anybody can carry or handle any type of cartridge or firearm, my ideal situation and my ideal recommendation of advice is generally you want to carry something that's at least 9mm in the semi-automatic category, and something that is at least 38 special, preferably plus P, in the revolver category. Okay, I see those as like the absolute bare minimum. And the reason for that, and again, this is an open-ended statement, it comes with a couple extensions. All right, but the reason for that is, in the realm of handguns, we look at something like a 10mm or a 45 ACP or a 357 SIG or a 357 Magnum. We look at those upper-end pistol calibers or revolver handgun calibers, and we see those as like, oh, those are the most powerful, those are great. But if we actually extend the spectrum out in the grand scheme of things, looking at the different guns and small arms and calibers and cartridges and effectiveness that's out there, handguns, even the best of the handgun category, is still really small, really far back on the spectrum of guns as a whole, if you compare it to rifles and shotguns. So, people take so much gravity and so much, regard to a handgun, and it certainly does help because it's the only type of gun that you can reasonably have on you at all times, concealed. Obviously, you can't conceal a shotgun or a rifle easily. Okay, so this is what we're forced to have. All right, but coming from a military mindset, the handgun is a last resort. It's the last resort of the last resort. I mean, it's like if all you have is a handgun, you're using that handgun to fight your way back to the rifle or fight your way back to the shotgun. Or if you're using a handgun, it's because your primary weapon system either broke, malfunctioned, or it went down, and all you have left, at least you have a handgun at something. Okay, so we can't take too much gravity. We have to look at the grand scheme of things. Handguns are generally underpowered in terms of the spectrum of firearms and small arms in general. So, generally we're going to want to, again, going back to my theme, I love that slogan from Springfield Army, bring enough gun. Okay, so, but that does come with a couple, a couple things to an extent. There's an extension of that. All right, if we have an older lady, maybe she's got arthritis or something, but she wants to conceal carry a gun all day, and maybe she's tried all kinds of different handguns, and the only gun that works for her is a little pocket .22 revolver. Okay, you know what? Generally speaking, I'm more of a fan, obviously, of 38 Special Plus P and up, or 9mm and up. Okay, but if that's the only gun that she's going to be comfortable with, if that's the only gun that she can be proficient with, if that's the only gun that she is definitely going to carry every day in the purse or the pocket, okay, and that's the only gun that, she can actually get results with and put rounds on target and do it quickly and effectively, if that's the only gun that's going to do it for her, that's the only gun that she can be competent with, then I recommend that I say, Grandma, you carry that gun all day. Okay, now a .22, is that my ideal defensive caliber? Absolutely not. I'm not a huge fan of the ignition system. Being rimfire, it's not always the most reliable. And not even talking about the gun itself, or the ballistics. So I'm not a huge fan of the fact that it's only a 36 or 40 grain projectile going out. But what I will say is, at the end of the day, a gun is better than no gun. And, if she needs it, she has it. And at the very least, she can pull it out thinking she's about to use it, and it'll scare off the perpetrator. The guy goes away because he doesn't realize, he's not going to sit there and look at it and be like, oh, is that a .22? Oh, okay, now I'll go ahead and attack then. No, they're the hell out of there most of the time, but you can't always count on that. Sometimes a perpetrator they'll see the presentation of a gun, and then they'll continue to attack. And that's the worst of the worst case scenario. Okay, so again, I want you to carry a caliber that's actually going to protect you, but first and foremost, beyond that, I want you to carry a gun system, a caliber, a cartridge with the recoil and the ergonomics in the gun. I want you to find that right, I'm going to call it the Goldilocks caliber, or the Goldilocks gun, the gun that seems to just fit and work in that type of caliber that's going to be the best, most powerful gun that you can reasonably carry and train with. Okay, 45 is great. I can handle it. I can shoot it well. Maybe not so good on the budget situation. So there's some other factors that, need to come into play when you're selecting a gun, especially for self-defense. So, carry a caliber that's actually going to have some chance of protecting you. But then again, like I said, that comes with an exception where if a .22 revolver is the only thing that you can reasonably be competent with, then go ahead and carry that. A gun is better than no gun, but try to make it the most powerful possible, I would say, that you can reasonably control and carry. So anyway, really appreciate you sticking in here for this video. I know it's over an hour, and I really appreciate you guys. I know there was no visual entertainment either. This is a very serious topic. I just wanted to lay it all out. And basically those are my thoughts and opinions. And again, I'm going to reiterate my disclaimer. If you have actual legal advice, you should go seek a lawyer or professional legal help if you have actual legal questions that you want answered. These are just one guy's opinion. Okay, and it's an opinion I've attained through military background, with training with, working with law enforcement, attending training courses, having concealed carry permits, shooting regularly, working at a gun range and a gun shop, and all of my personal life experiences. And it's certainly not the end-all do-all. There's so many dudes that are way more qualified than me. This is just my observations, my opinions, my thoughts about this kind of situation. So again, thanks for sticking in there for the long haul. Really want your questions and comments. The whole reason why I'm doing this is for thought exchange, for us to basically exchange thoughts and just get it out there. So definitely want to hear your opinions and your thoughts. And again, thanks for watching. Mr. Second Amendment signing out.